Good evening, everybody. So, you know, today my chai is going to be super special because it's going to be with a friend of mine, a mentor, somebody who's had loads of cups of tea with me, and somebody who we've brainstormed about children. We've had good amount of, tussles about how to do things, and this is going to be a beautiful cup of tea today. And Sunanda, as tradition, we have Pan the Panda who starts our sessions for us because that this is the little mascot for this beautiful team. So we usually do a little story with Pan, and today Pan is very very bored. He's just very very bored, and he says that I'm bored, do you know, and I'm going to go and stand by the window. So he suddenly goes to the window and he feels the breeze. He feels the cool breeze. And now he says, oh, I'm not frowning anymore, please. And then he looks up and a butterfly fluttering he sees. He then gets his toys and sits down. And now he does not have a frown. He's a very happy panda now, no frown at all. And suddenly he looks out and he sees gray clouds that fill the sky. He keeps wondering where they came from and why. And then he puts out his hand and he feels little drops of rain. He sees little droplets on the window pane. And then he sees the sky suddenly bright. Mr. Sun has sent away the clouds and is shining nice and bright. And then he looks back and sees this beautiful rainbow and says, oh my God, this is a story which Dadi told me. कि एक था सूरज और उसके पास था रुमाल और वो कभी भी रुमाल नहीं लेके जाता था. उसकी मम्मी उसको कहती थी कि रोज रुमाल लेकर जाओ, फिर भी वो भूल जाता था. एक दिन खूब से बारिश आई और जैसे आज मुझे हो गया वैसे सूरज को हो गया जुकाम. तब सूरज को समझ में आया था कि रुमाल का क्या था काम. फिर इंद्रधनुष के रंगों जैसा वो रुमाल लेकर आया और जब भी बारिश आती उसने सुंदर से रुमाल को फैलाकर सबको दिखाया. So the wonder of the rainbow, learning can happen anywhere. And just to say that, and just to explain to us on how learning happens, in how many ways it can happen, where it can happen, what are learning spaces, I have with me Sunanda, um, somebody who has, like I say, the profiles of these wonderful, wonderful people that who come on to our show are so phenomenal. But the one thing that makes me request them to come here is the connect that you feel with them, you know. So Sunanda, very warm welcome to the show, and it means a lot to have you here with us.
Thank you so much, Sonia. It is entirely my pleasure and privilege that I am with you on this platform. We go back many years, and I look forward to today's 45 minutes with our
it's going to
audience.
be absolutely. Thank you, Sunanda. So just a minute to just tell you Sunanda's background is so very very short. If you say she's a passionate educator, she is somebody who designs curriculum, she's somebody who mentors, she's somebody who works with experiential learning, who does up designs for even like the most beautiful country, the happy country Bhutan's base design has been done by Sunanda, where she's actually done the learning indicators, the whole process of how learning must happen. So learning spaces, who better than you who can tell us about it, Sunanda? So what would learning spaces mean, to just start the evening?
So yeah, I'm looking at an audience, I'm told, of parents and early childhood educators. And so the very important thing here is to reflect on what do we perceive as learning spaces. So in our understanding, most of us would say, in school, teachers would say, or parents would say home. But a learning space, how do you define a learning space? Learning space is really something which is an environment which is exciting, and it gives a rich opportunity for children to experiment and develop. uh, Having said that, I would say that yes, creating those opportunities lie with us. So whether it's your bedroom, whether it's your balcony, whether it's your kitchen floor, whether it's your, uh, cooking, when kids are hanging around, how do you engage them for meaningful and learning experiences in the early years? So, what you really need to remember is that children of this age group like routines. So, in your routines, how do you fit in actual learning to happen? And when I say learning is a very heavy word, we all want our children to learn, but every moment of every single day is a teachable moment and a learning opportunity for your children. So, for example, if so we are addressing birth to really, grade
Yeah.
3 children here. And so I'm going to read out a little passage of, how do you engage even children who are 10 months old or children who are 6 months old? Are they learning? Are they really learning? I know we read up many books which tell us developmentally appropriate milestones in children's lives, but how do you get them there, and what do adults need to do around them? So there was a young mother named Shalini, and she sees a large green lizard resting on a boulder in a sunny corner of a garden. So she picks up her daughter Zara, who is a 10-month-old baby, and points to the reptile and says, "See the lizard, Zara, it's sitting on the boulder. Watch how he moves his head to look around." And after a moment, the lizard turns, moves away quickly. Zara's eyes widen. "The lizard ran away," said her mother. "It moved fast, didn't it? I wonder where it went. Let's go look for it." Shalini carries Zara over to the boulder and puts her down on the grass. Zara crawls to the boulder, and she places her hand on top of it and pulls herself to a standing position. They spend a few minutes looking around the boulder. Shalini says, "I didn't see the lizard. Did you? Or do you? Maybe it's time for his nap." Zara looks at her mother and then looks down at the ground as if to.
Sunandha,
Shalini says, "I have an idea. Let's go sit on the garden swing and look at the picture book we made about the lizard who come visiting our garden." So it's a lot of hard work for adults. So every time you see something or you point something, you can begin to make a scrapbook which you can transfer outdoor learning back into the indoors. We always say indoor learning into outdoors, but what children see through their senses and feel, use their senses, is
yes.
what you need to powerfully, build on in your learning experiences with them. Language, again, is a very powerful tool, because when you talk to your children, be descriptive, ask questions, "I wonder," and wait for your child to respond. And there's no wrong answers, really. Never ridicule a child because he's not giving you a perfect answer, because a child is creative, he's or she is imaginative, and they will come up with really, really original responses
Yes.
to questions you ask them. And that is the wonder of learning. That is, children take, you'll see many children paint trees purple in color and blue in color. And I've heard in my experience a lot of educators saying, a tree is not purple, but for a child, it is creativity, it is imagination. The realism of things come in much, much later when they start relating it their art to real life objects, and it is a process. Art in itself is a process. So you'll see they'll make marks first on paper and give it names, saying this is mummy, this is daddy, and then they go on to these very geometrical shapes, and then real life form takes place. They'll start putting in features in the faces, give the body or the figure, fingers and toes, put on clothes onto it. And so this is developmental in the real artistic domain. And like that, in every part of development in children, it's all interrelated and interconnected. So if you're doing math in classroom, how do you teach numbers in the outdoors? And I'm going to hand over to Sonia and I would really invite the audience today to ask questions on
Yes.
how do we do this, or if there's something really you want to understand about integrated learning spaces. What is it that would benefit you today? So type in your questions. We'll try and respond
Answer.
to as many as we can, and we can further take it up. Sonia, maybe you can give them a little bit of that.
Yes, I would. So, the nice part of today is that today's we've done about 23 sessions, Sunanda. And what I'm finding so nice to see is a backdrop which is childlike, So, behind Sunanda, what you're seeing is a chart paper which has been hand painted by a 2.5-year-old granddaughter. And then these little fish that they have cut are cut out of the coloring, the basic craft and coloring that she did. They've cut it out and they've put it up. So look at this whole backdrop and learning that would have happened. She's 2.5 years old.
Yeah, so today she wanted to, it's very strange because, normally picture books show you fish in a single color, but today she came up that she wanted to make fish which were in different colors of the rainbow. Okay, so she knows what a rainbow looks like. Hasn't seen one yet in the sky, but she wanted to give it different colors. And so I cut out the shapes, and that's her work today. All morning we were doing that, and then I said, oh wow, wonderful, let me use this. So this is my bedroom wall, and when I'm cooking, because of the lockdown, she draws on my on my granite flooring.
Flooring, yes.
I give her different colored food colors, and she's playing with jars, pouring them into bottles. She does cooking with us, so we bake cakes together, her mom, me, and her also. And so how do you transfer this also outdoors is important. So if I want to do a cooking activity in the outdoors, what do? I would give them cupcakes. I would give them a whole lot of, kitchen tools, cookie cutters, and let them do it with mud. I would give them, um, not so firm like mud and water mixed, and I would give them actually ice cones and tell them create your own ice cones with maybe flowers and leaves stuck on it, and they can flavor it, they can name it. So there's huge amount of possibilities.
Learning,
and
yes.
each one of you need to explore that. It comes very naturally because you take from your life, you take from your experiences of being parents, of being teachers, having your own children at home, or then teaching children, this young. However, it's very important to also here remember that how do you teach and not tell? Most of us want to always tell our children things, even when we are teaching, we'll say, that's an earthworm, that's this, that's that. And so the question, the way we question children to trigger thinking is, what do you think that is? And let them come up with it.
You know,
So, 2-year-olds, if you show them an insect, they'll say it's a bug. Now, for them, a bug could be a butterfly also. So then you start slowly talking about, so some bugs can fly. And what makes them fly? What do you think makes them fly? So create that excitement for looking at things deeper, observation, to be able to. So when you're even walking, so language is a very powerful tool, the way
yeah.
you tend to ask questions to your young ones, or the way you encourage them to think and come up with their own ideas or thinking. And that's what we need to encourage.
Sunanda, also when you were telling that little story of Shalini and Zara, there were two reactions that came to my mind. The first reaction, which I usually would see, is be careful, don't go there, there's a lizard. So, the first, when you take children outdoor, that little sense of letting them take a few calculated risks is okay. Because
Yes.
we put so much of a fear, these days you see children just not exploring. They don't, of course, during this particular time, it's a different time. But on the whole, we just don't let them explore. There's too much of caution, there's too much of don't do this. That little fear that you're putting into children. So if you could, talk a little bit about that as to when the children are, when they're actually out there exploring, what do you say to use the correct, language where you caution the child, but you don't scare the child.
So a lot of the fears which transmit or children demonstrate is through adult experiences. So if a mom or a teacher is scared of a lizard and she squeals or screams when she sees one, the child automatically, because
Won't do that.
they look at us as role models in their life. They're very dependent on us, and trust us completely. So if we are demonstrating fear, children will also demonstrate the same fear, which tends to get cemented as they grow older. You know,
Yes.
so um, it's good to observe. You tell children don't touch it. So also tell children that most natural things will move away because they're scared of us. So when you approach them also, you need to be quiet, silent. So if you see a pigeon on in your colony, you're walking with your kids and you say, "Oh, look at that bird. What do you think it might be?" You know, and the child will say bird initially, but like Ivana, my grandchild now is able to recognize crows, pigeons, because these are sparrows, because they come to eat the grain on my great grandmother's balcony. So she is able to identify different kinds of birds, and she also knows that certain birds fly away, certain birds don't, because she tends to chase them downstairs, and the crows always go and sit on a signboard or on the tree, low branch of a tree, and keep cawing at her, but they don't move away. They move away to a distance, but they're not so shy. So she understands that, and she's observant. So if you keep pointing out things to the children of this age, they they keep. And also it's very important to revisit the same things, because children
Yeah.
learn very well when you keep reiterating what they already know, you know so form your questions differently, um, and but keep pointing these things out to them so that they are able to differentiate, they are able to understand, they are able to grow and learn.
You
And
know,
all.
so Sunanda, like you were saying that somebody typed in a question that during this pandemic time, when we can't really, the children are not meeting other children and then not going out so much. how do we help them to emote their feelings? I thought it was a really nice question where they're saying that, that how are we going to let them express themselves? Because there is certain amount of pent up energy. There is not that much of outdoor time that was happening. So a little bit on that. Even like what Sunanda's just done behind her is actually a child emoting her feelings. Even this little thing that's done at the mural at the behind you is something which is, so if you could just talk to everybody about that, a little bit about emotion and getting this connect together, the indoor outdoor space and learning.
Yeah. So, pandemic or no pandemic, I think it's really important for young children to be outdoors. And as adults in their life, we need to be putting safety into very, very straight perspective when we do take our children out. So, according to your routines of your child, it is important to go down. You can go down early morning, but if you have walkers in a society who walk early, then maybe at 10 o'clock, because by 10, people have started going to work, and the environment around the colony is more or less quiet. Older kids are online classes, so they're busy, and that's the perfect time to take kids down between 10 and 12 or 9 and 11. um, when you take them down, so we also know that very young children, it is advised for them not to be wearing masks because of breathing in carbon dioxide, which they breathe out. And so keeping that in mind, go down in the lift. There's use a sanitizer, walk outdoors. You can have great amount of activities. So to be able to expend energy, and when you do expend energy, children's emotions normally come out. They're either extremely excited, or they are inquisitive. So there are many kinds of things they want to do. They may want to play on the park. Take them, but make sure when they come back, you bathe them, change their clothing, wash their hands. That's it. This pandemic is not going away in a hurry. We all know that. We cannot keep children 24 locked up inside, four walls.
Yeah.
Start a gardening, give them things to do on the balcony if you're in a flat.
Yes.
If you don't have a balcony or it's very small, use the community areas. Take the digging tools down and let them dig the soil.
Also,
Let them take off their shoes and walk on the small bits of grass or concrete. It's tactile. Let them touch the barks of trees, play around it, play around the walls of where the cars are parked. You can use those walls. I'm not talking about basement. I'm talking about, in flat systems, you have
your parking
areas even on the first floor, on the ground floor. You can use that even in bad weather. You can stick up papers which you can remove. Always remember to be extremely conscious of cleaning up after yourself. That's all. You can carry your little buckets down. You can play games. You can take a tub, fill it up with mud, and let them have a dig. Like a treasure hunt in the mud. You can do it with alphabets. You can do it with numbers, or you can just do it with objects. If the children are young and they're learning new words, you can use the small world toys. We get these little plastic things. It could be bugs, it could be beetles. They could take it out. You can start sorting it out. You can say, oh, all the bugs go here, and you can put the little picture of a bug there, or one bug inside a little circle of thread. So you can make these areas where they can start sorting. For older children, they can give the animals a bath in the tub downstairs, or when they're having a bath. So every moment can be joyful learning experience. So when they sit in their tub and have their bath, or their bucket is full of water, let them muck around for 5 to 10 minutes with soap suds and, washing the animals,
Yeah.
doing an animal parade, lining them up, sorting out the waste, coming back to the pandemic. You all must take your kids out. You all must give them nutritive foods which are high builds immunity, within children. Their routines must be um, their routines must be the way they were. It's very important to have routines for children this young. And remember with their meal times, their nap times, their indoor outdoor experiences. Yeah.
So, Sunanda, I was just listening to you, and in all these days that we were talking about safety norms for children outdoor, very few people have spoken about the fact that when little children wear a mask, you have to be very careful because they will breathe in what they're breathing out. And this is one caution which I have really not heard so much. So it is something which is important, and I think also parents can explore this aspect of it with the younger children. Another very beautiful thing that I'm seeing around is that they're networking where the mothers are taking care of the other children. So I think this is another thing which I would suggest that parents should today we are having some small issues with the connections. I think there has been a little bit of a connect back. Sunanda will connect back in a little bit. So I think Pankaj ji can give her a call and then help us to connect back. So till then, we'll do a little bit of chatting on learning spaces. So all these days we've had psychologists, we've had people with the social emotional development. Sunanda's joining back. We've had so many speakers. We've had little Ria telling us about how feeding birds can become so powerful. So when we talk about nature, nurture, this is the best time to actually create a little more for children. There is so much to do. Today there was one question. Sunanda, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
great. So there was one question. So one thing, Sunanda, that we've decided during this time is that the minute somebody can't hear or something, we stop panicking. We've reached that state of bliss where we know you'll come back.
Yeah.
So this has been a learning for us. There was panic initially. My husband would be standing there, and there would be another person there, and Pankaj would be. But now you realize these things happen, and this is going to be the magic of telling children that things can happen. You be calm. Yesterday, somebody said something so beautiful, Sandha. I was talking to not in my last sessions. They said anxiety is a learned disorder for children. They are not naturally anxious. You teach them to become anxious. And that's exactly what you said. I saw a question here that said that how can I teach backward counting to a 3-year-old? Uh, I'm going to leave this question to Sunanda. Because when we have fear. Yeah, so two questions, Sunanda. One is, how do we teach backward counting to a 3-year-old? I want you to say what you would say to me if I asked you this question. And the second question that I see is, as parents, we have fears. What can we do not to pass them to the children? So we'll start with the backward counting first. I want to see what Sunanda is going to say about this.
So I am also, जैसे कहते हैं हम गुनहगार हैं. So I used to be terrified of reptiles and rodents, you know, rats. And I remember jumping onto my, you know, dining table with my younger daughter right behind me on top of the table. And who was the brave one was my older daughter with a broom. Although she was terrified, she decided to stay down below. Okay. And as I grew up, I remember them making a crazy movie through the window of my kitchen window when they were teenagers, and they called it the mouse hunt because I was trying to catch a rat in my kitchen. Okay. And why I'm saying this is that I'm from an army background and we lived in all kinds of crazy places where these things used to visit our homes very often. We couldn't keep them out. So yeah, so I would say that do not panic. Even if you are scared, I think you need to have the courage to say, okay, we're not going to touch this, but we can stand still here and see what it's going to do. You don't have to go touching it, but you don't also have to scream and shout and remove that. And also reiterate the kid that it's not going to harm you unless you touch certain things. And they harm you because they are scared, and their way of defense, animals in the natural world, is to attack. When they are threatened, it's when they will attack. Otherwise, they don't. So you can observe wildlife. You can observe insects. I will tell you that although bees are frighteningly dangerous, my grandchild and me stand and observe bees in the rose bushes every single morning, and they're drinking nectar, and that's what I tell her. But I tell her that if she goes very close to them, they can sting her, and it's going to hurt. So we need to watch them from a distance so we don't
Yeah.
disturb them. So respect for uh, uh,
Yes.
things we share our planet with is something we need to start teaching our children. And what was the
Yes.
first question, Sonia?
So, when we are doing learning, the minute we say learning, I always will get a question on backward counting. Imagine, because, parents are worried about it, that how will the child do backward counting? And I have an answer to this, but I will wait for your answer before I answer.
Yeah, your answer first.
All right. So my logic is that a 3-year-old does not do backward counting initially. Let the child, poor thing is 3 years old, let them do some forward counting. There will come a time, don't make them do things. And that's what, I was just going to take out that new education policy and hold it in my hand, Sunanda. Because after 30 years of struggling, I think we have all struggled 30 years plus. Others have done work before us. This is exactly what we are trying to tell parents not to do. There is so much to learn, and that's what this whole program is all about. That learning spaces just doesn't mean, numbers and addition and backward counting and tables. There is so much to learn. The child can, it's 3 is such a difficult number. You have 2 eyes, you have 5 fingers, you have 4 wheels in a car, but the number 3 the child doesn't come across except in an auto and rickshaw. So the number 3 is actually a very difficult number to learn. So teach them all of that. Don't worry about, the book based. That is the whole reason why I invited Sunanda today, is because during this time, Sunanda, I'm having questions on, can you send assessments to pre-primary children? I mean, like, the whole college education is saying leave it alone. So assessment means what? It means, to me, observing whether the child is able to learn a particular thing or not giving them a 50 marks. So when you ask me questions like this, we absolutely need to be cautious that what is the learning milestone? Does a 3-year-old learn this or not? So, Sunanda, the milestones, the developmental continuum, you are somebody who has done It's so beautifully, so I want you to talk about these learning milestones, how we expect little ones to do what they really can't do at that point of time.
Just draw attention on the word backward counting and forward counting, and being able to, count numbers from 1 to 10 and 1 to 20 and 1 to 100. And we say our kids can do it. This is all rote learning. It's like learning a poem. When we count from 1 to 10, or we are doing skip counting, or we are doing backward counting, it's rote learning. They have no concept of what is backward. They just know that they're saying it backwards.
Yeah.
But do they know that when we take away 1 from 10, it becomes 9? And when we take away, so actually backward counting is subtraction.
Yes.
Okay. So how do I use this in the...
All right. So we've lost Sunanda again, but suppose we have to take the children out and we actually have to, we'll wait for her to join us back. So I will continue till she joins us back.
Say the order of numbers. It's important to know the order of numbers. And then when they start jumping backwards, they'll keep saying that. So over a period of time, they will automatically learn it, and you're not forcing them to learn it. Okay, it's through play. The other way to do it is you go for a walk, collect sticks, stones, leaves, fallen. Don't, please, I'm also an environmentalist. I believe. So I don't like telling children, let's pluck flowers or let's pluck leaves of trees. So I always say, let's pick leaves which are fallen, and they collect it in their baskets, and they come back to this, grid which we have drawn, and they'll put one stone in the number 1. They may
number.
2 sticks in the next one. So you're adding value to numbers. Now, when you don't need to do it till 10, but if you teach children the value of numbers from 1 to 5 to begin with, and you teach them addition, subtraction with just 1 to 5, they understand how to do it with bigger numbers. It's just so simple.
Yes. And what Sunanda said was so beautiful, that when you did backward counting, normally people will say just jump backwards. But what she said is give a certain quantum and let them keep taking away 1 from it. So they first understand, concrete, that when I take away 1, I have 1 lesser. When I have take away 1, I have 1 more lesser, 1 more lesser. So that is more important than saying 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Don't worry about it. It'll come. But
Correct.
If you can get your little child, even if it's, pencils, just put them and say, okay, let's take away 1 and now we have 4. Let's take away 1 and we have, there's this beautiful little rhyme that says 5 little ducks went out to play over the hills and far away, and Mama Duck said quack, 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 and 4 little ducks came back, back, back. So even if you can do it with toys, the whole purpose of having this whole session is that try and make learning into experiences.
Also, Sonia, if I may just add here, it's very important to use mathematical language when you're talking to children. So when you say, oh, see that one bird, okay, and 1 more joined it. How many birds do you think we have now in the park? Or if you see a bird going away, say, oh, that bird flew away. So it's going away. You're using subtraction. So mathematical language is very important for children to understand. So 1 more than that number, or 1 less than that number, is how we consciously talk to children when we deal with math.
Actually, if we think of activities, we create this little vocabulary bank in our heads. Rather, if you can write it down also, then using it becomes, all of us are not teachers, all of us are not working with children, but all of us can collect this vocabulary, use the correct vocabulary. And Sunanda, what we started this about 3-4 sessions back is, we thought before we wind up, because imagine we've been chatting for 40 minutes, it just goes like that, and it's just so fast. But I thought we must start using the last 5 minutes to actually, I had requested Sunanda to do, to put together a few activities. That is why we were calling these the rapid rounds. Now, rapid rounds can't be for 40 minutes because we have to build up to that rapid round. And this is also something which I want to convey to parents, to teachers. You can't suddenly expect magic. The build up happens and then the rapid rounds happen. So don't expect the rapid rounds from before that. So, Sunanda, if you could just share a few activities for different age groups which you were talking about, I think it would really help everybody to
Sure.
take it forward.
So let's look at, you know, infants, and let's look at them till till the age of 1. What is it? There's rapid developmental milestones they reach. Children really change in the first year of their life, and so right from the time there are babies, it's important to, so their eye, their vision is not clear, so you have those things which rotate around them. You can hang things which they can kick, so you can tie gas balloons to their foot because they keep, or gungaroos, you get safe ones, of course, the soft ones for children, so their sense of hearing is going. Lay them down on the grass, let them crawl on the grass, let them touch water, let them touch different things, let them walk. When they are older, getting on to closer to 1, you can have different little tubs filled with different tactile experiences. So it is very sensorial, and they will definitely touch and pick and put in their mouth, because this part of the sensory organ is what they understand, because they suckle at the mother's breath. This is very heightened, the mouth, so that's why children put everything into their mouths, because they want to feel it. That's how they understand the touch or the feel of things, and so it's a very natural thing. So a lot of activities like that, you put them on their belly, they're learning to raise their heads. You give them things in front which they can grab. They like rattles, the sounds. As they grow older, you even give them things like, you can give them things like, can you hear me, Sonia?
Yes.
You can give them things like pots and pans to bang. Dance and movement is very important. So put on some music and you dance. Put on some music, give them paints on the wall, where they can also, they connect with rhythm and movement when they are painting. So you'll see them jogging and or moving their bodies also as they paint, and those are very natural things till, children till about a year and a half do. Now if you come into children who are between the ages of 1 and 2, it's more natural play, it's not directed. So create enriching environments for them to learn, whether it's in the outdoors or whether it's at home. Create things which would interest them. So things like small puzzles. You can make them on cardboard. Stick a picture, cut it in half, and let them find different bodies. Or let them, you can. So even for older children who are learning their letters. You can play an alphabet game in the outdoors with them, where you hide th- things like this. You could either have small kids, depending, or large case, or you can have them together, depending on how children are learning in their school, or how you're teaching them, whether you're introducing, or you can have them both ways, so they can use whichever side they want to. So stick them in, let them find these letters. They get very excited and they come, and then you can ask them to place these or dig them near things. So if I find a L, I will look for a leaf. Okay, if I see fur, come on, what would you find in the outdoors with the
A
fur, Sonia?
flower, a flower, a flower, finger.
I can't hear you, Sonia.
Oh, okay. I said that, Sunanda, you go on. You go on. Don't worry about it. I think today the connections are a little, but it doesn't matter. You go on. You go on. You continue speaking. All right. So Sunanda was saying that you hide little things, then you can actually do a phonic activity outside, and there's so much to do. So little connections, a little bit of get just in the mind saying that we can do these activities in both the spaces. Bring the outdoors indoors and take the indoors outdoors. So what Sunanda said so beautifully was that when you go outdoors and you see things, you can come back indoors and actually sketch them out. You want to do an activity which you've done counting indoors, you can go out and collect things and count them. So small things like that, just interrelating the indoor with the outdoor and the outdoor with the indoor.
So also, yes, Sonia, like for examples, you want to do patterning. You can pick up leaves, twigs,
Yeah.
flowers, rocks. So many things we find in the outdoors.
Yes.
All the time lying on the floor. So you can use them. You can create mandalas. Also, a very powerful activity for little older kids. I know I've been talking a lot. So you can also do sight words. You can do letters, and you can give children. For younger children, you can write them. And have like a beanbag toss, and wherever it lands, they are able to say that letter, sound it, and think of a word which begins with that sound. So you can do that. For older children, you can give them a basketball, and you can ask them to go to, let's say, a particular sight word, and they find it, and then they can do a dribble, what they are learning in school. So it could be dribble with one leg up, or dribble with it between your legs. So you can make it really fun for kids who are older. You can do the same with maths. So what is 5 plus or 30 plus 50, go find the answer, and then they dribble to it. And so you can do a lot of problem solving sums also, the same way when you draw with chalk on pavement. Also, what is a very nice activity for slightly older age group, you can do it with the young ones too, but this is something called the human sundial, which I found really exciting. So you take children out, you take your child outside, and you, let's say in the morning at 10 o'clock when the sun is up, and you first draw the feet so that they stay in that footprint whenever they go out to look at the time. And so they stand there, you draw on their foot, and then you are allowed to draw the shadow of the child. If you have more than one child, they can do it for each other. Otherwise, the mom can help, and 2 hours later, an hour later, the shadow keeps moving. And post this exercise, you can write the time, you stand there. So children are also learning how to read the clock. So on the o'clock, which is at 12, and the small hand at whatever number it's at, it's 5 o'clock. So the 12 becomes the o'clock, and the small hand tells you the time of the day. And so you draw this, and you talk about how time changes, and to move it forward, learning about light and shadows. You can teach science behind this. Talk about, do your kids understand how shadows are created? Talk about the light and dark, and how is a shadow cast? Why is there a shadow? Where is the light source? That's
so I think, Sunanda, with speakers like Sunanda, we have to keep getting them back. There is so much to share.
I mean, there's so much to share. Why does the sun move? Why is it dark on one side of the world and light on the other side of the world? Then you can discuss the history of a sundial with older children.
My God, all right.
Grade 3, people used to keep time by the sun and their shadows. This really helps kids to understand the concept. A visual is always a better way to teach anything.
Yeah.
So if it's time, it's cooking, it's anything, the minute they can use their senses to explore that subject or concept, it will never leave them. And I'm going to leave, Sonia, you to conclude with on that note.
So
And
yeah, so my deal is also that, uh, this is something which we've been noticing, Sunanda, is that every speaker that we've had, we can actually weave a complete thread to what we are talking about today. It's amazing because all people who are working with children say experiences. Uh, just grow experiences and don't worry about where you grow them. Children, during this pandemic time, please remember they are going to learn all the time. They're going to learn patience, they're going to learn observation, they're going to learn the science even in the washroom, even in the kitchen. So the wonder, just keep the wonder going. Don't worry about the quantum of syllabus.
I
Keep the
also
learning
want to,
going.
yeah, Sonia, I want to actually also, leave the audience with a thought of how much screen time are the children watching. I know it's hard for parents because they are working, kids are at home, they are, it's
Yeah.
really difficult. And, but for the early years, their screen time should not exceed 20 minutes in a day. Whether you want to break that up or you want to do 220 minutes is the maximum.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, you know, uh,
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are
it's
doing now.
not, I know you're going to
Short
hate me
bursts.
for
Yeah.
saying
No,
this.
no, 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 no. They are doing short bursts.
And remember, never let them watch the screen before they go to sleep because it actually stimulates the brain. So they're not restful. A screen stimulates the brain and they don't get, so more a story time or a quiet jigsaw puzzle or reading to them or
Yeah.
just something
So I
quiet
think
down the day.
that's actually a beautiful note to wind up with when we did this thing of caution is that 30 minutes before after you wake up and 60 minutes before you sleep, switch off your screens, everybody. For some time, it's good and peaceful. And Sunanda, thank you so much for this beautiful evening. And I hope so. Like I said, that sometimes the question, everybody just is so engrossed in listening to our speakers that they don't ask too many questions. But we hope that we've, helped you to think on the indoor and outdoor spaces better. And thank you so, so much. And thank you,
So
Sunanda.
thank you, Sonia. Thank
And
you, everyone, for joining us today.
thank you. And next week, everybody be ready because we are going to do loads of learning and cooking together. And bye bye. Thank you.
Sonia.
Square, square, panda.